Hey, so we have our fetch working, and we also have our button working, and we're getting the information from the page. So we're ready to move on to the next step where we're going to do something with that data that's returned. So we're going to have a function, and we can just call this one show. It's going to take data in. And this will give us some flexibility on the data that's being returned back, because the data is only ready when this promise has been met. So once the data and the connection's been made, it's got some type of returned data, and then it takes the return data and makes it into a JavaScript object, passes it into the next promise, which is then, and passing it, and then this is where we've got the usable data. So at this point is where we want to send it over to show, and we're going to pick it up as data within show, and now we can loop through it and iterate through it, and then just do all kinds of stuff with that data as it's coming in. So console log data, and we can loop through. So we're going to also, because this is going to be an array object, so we're going to have a length to it as well. And if we have a length, that means that we can loop through it. So we can take data and use for each and loop through, iterate through all the data, and we can assign a variable to it. So I'm assigning video to it. So each one of those, as we loop through, is going to be output as video. And then this is going to be an object that, again, that we're going to loop through and we're going to make use of. So one of the things too as well, when we do return it back, all of the information that we want to make use of is contained within snippet. So it's within that object snippet that we want to utilize it. So that was one of the things that I did want to update. So let's bring this one and unquote that. So now let's try that one time, and you're going to see what's being returned back in data. So this is the object that's being returned back, and there's a ton of information. The one that we want to utilize is we want to utilize items. As you can see within items, this is where all of that data for each one of those items is available. So let's take that information and return back and send data items into show. So we've got data items, and we're going to send that into show, and then that way show can pick up that data, and then we can see it being output into the console. So as we do our search, you can see now each and every one of these objects is being output, and now you can use these objects as we loop through them, and instead of outputting them into the console, we can then output them into the visible area of the page. So how about we try that, and we're going to create elements in place using document create element, and add in all of these created elements with the content. And you can pull any type of content that you want from here. As I said, there is a ton of stuff in here. So you can go through and you can get the video ID. So this can be also used to create the URL to connect to the video. And then under snippet, this is where all that useful information, like it's got the description there, it's got the title, it's got thumbnails, when it was published. So all of this information is sitting within snippet. So you can go and traverse through that video object and get all of that information that you want to use. Let's go through that and do a quick setup of this. We're going to create some elements on the fly. So let div, and this is going to be our main container div, using document create element. Element that we're creating is a div. And then as we create the div, let's add a class to it. So class list, and then doing add, and the class that we're adding is blocks. So that's that one class that we created in the first lesson. And then as we also iterate through there, you can update some of that inner text and inner content of it. You can create additional elements to hold that. You can also add and create temporary text nodes. So let's create one of those as well. So we'll call it temp, and we're going to create a text node. And this will contain all of the text information within video, and that's video snippet description. And then take div, append child to it. And the child that we're appending is that new div that we created, that text node. You can also add in a link if you wanted to. Span, that's going to hold the link. So span and document. And of course, you can style these as needed. So span, we are going to have the hyperlink here. So inner HTML. And then the inner HTML here is going to be going to a page located at HTTP, and the URL for YouTube videos. And so here we're going to just break out of the string and then break back into it, and target blank. And we can add the video title here under video snippet title. And it's expecting the object information. So this is video ID. We might have to double check that just to make sure that it is working. So it does look like that worked. It output it properly. And all of this object information actually I'm getting from here. So we see that we've got the snippet here, and under snippet, there's description, there's title, so that's what's going to get returned back within that object, and as well as ID, and then we've got video ID. So I need to update that to have video ID instead of just ID. So video ID, make sure that you do spell it properly so it is case sensitive. So we are ready to add it to the page, so it looked like that worked properly, and we can now use the div and append child and append the span to there. And then output, append child. So output is that main element div object that we have, and append the div to that one. So now when I press search, it should create all of the elements with the values coming from the API, as well as a link to the videos. So now this is kind of big, so let me make this a little bit smaller. And of course, this is all coming from the API. I probably do need to make a space there or something else because that's kind of throwing off the way that it's looking. But you get the idea here that we've got the description of the video, and then we've got the title of the video, and we can click and link it, and you can see you can open up the YouTube video. So now, of course, we can style it, and there's a whole bunch more information that's contained within the object that we can make use of. So within the snippet, there's also the channel ID, the channel title, description. There's also some thumbnails here as well. So there's the default one, and there's high and medium. And you can also output these into the page as needed. So go ahead and try this out. And coming up, we'll apply a little bit more styling and make it look a little bit more neat. So that's still to come in the upcoming lesson.